Hello, this is Valerie Gaddis, and today we're going to look at how to make great wheel spindle bearings out of corn husk. You might find corn husk or leather or rush or any other number of materials for a bearing, but today we're using corn husk. Items you will need are the corn husk from your grocery or cornfield, scissors, knitting needle or a spindle. You'll need a sharp needle and some heavy-duty thread like upholstery or button thread or linen thread, your mother of all that you're going to be working on, your measuring tape or ruler, a tying board, and clamp. Now that we have all of our things assembled, I have the corn husk soaking, and I have several in there, maybe 3, 4, 5, because I'll probably end up rejecting some, and I always want to have plenty that's dampened and soaked. I have my thread, and I have already knotted it, and you'll find out why that's important. And now I need to determine just exactly how long I want that corn husk bearing. So a ruler or a tape measure, either one. This one's already done, as you can tell. I left it quite long and floppy just on purpose. I kind of like it that way. So this is totally at your discretion. So here we can see that probably 9 to 10 inches for that long one. And I did want that plenty long to be able to wrap around the neck. For the mother of all, for the miner's head, we'll want it the diameter plus the size for the spindle plus some extra tail. So if we hold it here and look at it again, we're looking at, again, 8 to 9 inches. So we can say probably bearings 8 to 9 inches would be quite long enough. So now I've soaked the corn husk, and I have one that I've taken out of the water, taken the little extra water off. I'm going to be ripping them in length, and I'm just making them probably about 3/4 wide, 3/4 of an inch wide. If you go much thinner than that, your corn husk bearing is going to be pretty thin, but that's okay. It just depends on the use. And I'll just keep ripping them. And I'll rip several because, as you see, to get the length, I need to work in some more. So this one's a very nice husk that I'm able to use. There's really not too many blemishes on it. This one's a little too thin, so I'll just discard that one. And I would like them mostly uniform in width. And it just seems so odd to be able to braid something whenever it's so skinny at the top, at the base of the ear. And this one's a little thin too, and I'll discard that one. Now then, to start, what I'm going to do is take 3 of them, and I'm going to make a 3-ply braid. You could make 4 if you like braiding with 4 plies. The 4-ply will make a round bearing. Using 3, you'll make a flat bearing. And depending on your wheel, you might choose to make one or the other. And here I've alternated a thin one with a couple of thicks, and I'll just fold them all together. Now then, now we've got a little bit of a tail. I'll take my needle and thread that's already been knotted, and this is why I told you to go ahead and knot it. And take your needle through there. Now that I've got it secured with the knot, I'll wrap it around several times just to secure it. And then take the thread back through and secure it again. And there's that little loop, which really won't matter a whole lot. I didn't get it pulled tight. So now that I've done that, I'll go ahead and cut it. But before we start braiding, go ahead and knot that thread again, and you'll see why. Whenever we get to the end, I don't want to let it go. and have to knot something. So now I have anchored the corn husks to a board. You can do that any number of ways, just something to hold it tight. And I'm ready to start in braiding. And again, this is a 3-ply, and you'll want to start out making it pretty tight, because remember, this will shrink. It's wet. And just try to keep it uniform as much as possible. And I must say, I didn't have any girls, so I'm not real adept at braiding. But we'll get it done. We'll get the idea. So you can tell, even with a 5/8 to 3/4 inch wide corn husk strip, this one's going to be pretty small. You could probably even go a little bit wider. And you'll see soon why I want that thread knotted already. And this is going pretty quickly. It really doesn't take very long to make these. You can sit down and make several at one time. And again, remember, if you want a round bearing for your wheel, then you can use a 4-ply. So now then, I'm starting to get down to something that's pretty small, and it's starting to get short. How do I work in some more? Obviously, I'm not 8 inches. I'm probably at about 4 inches right now. So that's why I have these extra strips sitting. I'm going to work in some of these with the braid and leave it long. I'll come back and clip that. And if you like clipped ends not showing, you can just cut them very short whenever you're ready to put the bearing on, and kind of lock those into place with your braiding. That one's getting pretty short. I'm not going to cut off what's already there. For one thing, I don't want to lose the tension on my braid. And I can just keep going by adding. You have to think about our ancestors. They probably used whatever was available for corn husks or for bearings for their great wheel. They might have used some grasses, rush, might have even used their horse's tail or mane. Whatever was available. Might have even used flax fiber. So there I'm getting extra length. It's a little bit fatter than the beginning, but that's going to be natural. And we're getting close to 8 inches by the looks of it. If I wanted to, I could stop and measure. And I'm starting to get out of sight of the camera, but I think we're just about there. I'm going to call that one 8 inches. Now then, this is why it's important to have that thread already knotted. Same procedure as when you started. I'm going to bring it through and wrap it around. Trying to do this to where you can see it on the camera. And I'll wrap it around several times, and that's upholstery thread that I'm using. You can use linen thread. And then I'll push it through to secure. And at this point, you might even need some pliers to help pull it through, because that's a pretty tight thread. And now I'm ready to cut the thread. So the one I just made, I'm ready to trim off the thread. And trim it up a little. And you can trim these very close. When they're dry, you won't even see them. Remember, it will shrink. Now, we have an idea of how long it might be. That's certainly every bit of 8 inches. We can trim the end here. Now, I usually put them onto the maiden whenever they're damp, especially if I have something like this that I need to wrap around the neck. That is very difficult to do whenever it's dry. You just can't hardly do it. So what we might do or consider is to tie it on, but leave it somehow to where you can readjust it later on after it's dry, because it will shrink, but at least it will form in the shape that you need it to be. Tina, in our Great Wheel Facebook group, she suggests making several and letting them dry, and then put a little weight on them. And if you use a knitting needle or a spindle, then at least it will shape around the spindle and you'll have a nice little loop for whenever they're dry. That's another thought. But that's all there is to making corn husk bearings. I'll make another one, and hopefully I can put the mother of all for the miner's head back together today. Thanks for watching.